My husband was standing at the stove, stirring a pot like it was any ordinary evening, when his phone buzzed on the counter beside me. I wasn't trying to invade his privacy, but the words on the screen froze me where I stood. I can't abort it. In that moment, something inside me went very still, and instead of asking questions or confronting him, I typed a reply he never expected, a reply that would bring the truth to our doorstep. If this story touches something familiar or painful in you, you can quietly support the channel by liking and subscribing for more real-life stories like this. I still remember the smell of onions sizzling in the pan that evening, the kind of ordinary moment that should have felt safe, when my husband's phone lit up on the kitchen counter and quietly changed the direction of my life. I wasn't trying to snoop. I was just closer to the phone than he was, and when I saw the message preview from my sister saying, "I can't abort it," something inside me went cold in a way I had never felt before. At first, I told myself I was misunderstanding, that there had to be some explanation that didn't involve the two people I trusted most betraying me at the same time, but my hands were already shaking as I picked up the phone, realizing this was a moment I couldn't undo. I replied before my husband even noticed, typing "come over," with a calm I didn't feel, as if my body was protecting me by moving ahead of my thoughts. Looking back, I understand now that my life had been slowly steering toward this moment long before that text arrived. I grew up in a family where keeping the peace mattered more than speaking the truth, where I learned early on that love often meant compromise and silence. When I married my husband, I believed I had finally built something stable, something honest, and when my sister leaned on us after her own marriage fell apart, I didn't hesitate to open our home to her, telling myself that family was supposed to show up, even when it was uncomfortable. I ignored small moments that didn't sit right, the late-night conversations that stopped when I entered the room, the way my sister seemed to know too much about my marriage, the way my husband became distant while insisting nothing was wrong. I convinced myself I was being insecure, that years of trying to hold everyone together had simply made me overly sensitive. That night, as my husband continued cooking, unaware of what I had read, I felt an old familiar fear return, the fear of being the last person to know the truth in my own life. When my sister arrived, her face pale and eyes swollen, the room filled with a tension so thick it felt hard to breathe, and for a moment, no one spoke. My husband looked confused, then alarmed, and I realized he had assumed he would have time, that secrets could stretch on indefinitely if handled carefully enough. When I asked her to explain what she meant, my voice sounded distant, almost detached, and she broke down, admitting the pregnancy without saying the words I already knew were coming. My husband finally spoke, trying to interrupt, to control the narrative, and that was when I felt something inside me collapse. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the realization that I had spent years making space for everyone else's needs while slowly disappearing from my own marriage. The room felt smaller as the truth hovered just out of reach, and I understood that no matter what happened next, the version of my life I had believed in was already gone. That night didn't end with screaming or dramatic exits, but with unanswered questions hanging between us, questions about loyalty, about boundaries, about how long love can survive when honesty is treated as optional. As I lay awake afterward, listening to the quiet hum of the house, I knew I was standing at the edge of a choice I could no longer avoid, one that would force me to decide whether holding on to family meant losing myself, or whether it was finally time to draw a line I should have drawn long ago. I didn't tell my husband right away that I had replied to my sister's message, because I needed time to understand what I was feeling before turning it into words. That night, after she came over, the three of us sat in the living room in a silence so thick it felt heavier than anger, and I realized that this wasn't just about betrayal, but about years of unspoken boundaries that had been slowly eroding. My sister finally spoke first, her voice shaking as she admitted the pregnancy wasn't recent news, and that she had been living in fear, unsure of what to do, or who she could trust. And when she looked at my husband, I saw something pass between them that confirmed my worst suspicions without a single detail being said aloud. My husband didn't deny it, but he didn't rush to explain either, and that pause hurt more than any confession could have. He told me the truth in pieces, how it started during a difficult time when our marriage felt distant, how he convinced himself it was temporary, how guilt made him retreat further instead of coming clean, and listening to him, I felt a strange calm settle over me, not because I wasn't hurt, but because the uncertainty was finally gone. What surprised me most was how little anger I felt toward my sister in that moment, because beneath the betrayal I could see her fear, her immaturity, and the way our family had always avoided difficult conversations, leaving her unprepared for the consequences of her choices. I told them both that I needed honesty more than apologies, and for the first time, I wasn't asking to be reassured or chosen but respected. The turning point came when I realized that staying silent to keep peace had cost me my sense of self, and I wasn't willing to do that anymore, even if it meant breaking apart the life I had worked so hard to build. I told my husband that regardless of what happened next, I would not carry the weight of their secret for them, and that my sister would need to face her decisions without hiding behind family loyalty. That night ended without resolutions, but something inside me shifted, a quiet strength replacing the fear that had ruled me for so long. Over the weeks that followed, my husband and I spoke more honestly than we ever had before, not in raised voices, but in careful, painful truths, and while reconciliation was discussed, it was no longer my goal to save the marriage at any cost. I began focusing on what healing meant for me, setting boundaries with my sister, allowing distance where it was necessary, and accepting that love doesn't excuse harm. Eventually, I chose to step away from the marriage, not because I didn't still care, but because I finally understood that forgiveness doesn't always mean staying, and that sometimes the most loving choice is to protect your own peace. Looking back, that text message didn't just reveal a betrayal, it revealed the patterns I had lived with for years, and breaking them wasn't dramatic or loud, but deliberate and deeply personal. Today, my relationship with my sister is cautious but honest, my relationship with my ex-husband is respectful but distant, and my relationship with myself is stronger than it has ever been. I learned that healing isn't about erasing pain, but about choosing not to live inside it forever, and while my life looks different now, it feels lighter, grounded in truth rather than silence, and that, finally, feels like peace.